all know what he's done. He's had this incredible arc, or maybe he's not ready. Bill, we want you to turn on your video, but maybe not. Maybe it'll just be me doing a monologue. All right, this is even better.
Man.
Hey, man, nice to see you. First of all, thanks for dressing up for the award.
Welcome. Yeah.
Two.
That's the nice thing about Zoom. You can just, walk downstairs and.
Yeah, I'm in my pajamas. This is how this is how I sleep.
And playing the drums.
Exactly. I don't sleep well. Obviously, you can see by the bag. First of all, congratulations. It must on editing that highlight reel. How long did that take you to put together?
It took me a long time to put together. Initially, Elizabeth and them, they said that highlight reels usually aren't 4 hours long and just silent close-ups. But they said, it'd be nice if it had like the arc of your career in there. But I think they kind of took it and then they whittled it down to what you just saw. It was nice.
I got very nice. And do you edit on? Are you like Avid? Are you?
I like to
Adobe Premiere.
I have a Kim, where I just like press it and I do this. So that's all film that you saw. I actually took video and put it and transferred it to film and cut it.
Like a television.
In my daughter's room, yeah. I have a flatbed that's in my daughter's room, and she doesn't like it. But what are you gonna do?
I love it. I did, because you're a film buff, so you like to do it. You like to taste the emulsion.
Yeah. No, it's Vernon Fields. It's the hero.
First of all, you're getting the Okie Award, and you're from Oklahoma, so you might be the most appropriate winner of the Okie Award so far, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's kind of cool. I guess so. We didn't know that Okies were about Jack Okie. I always thought it was where we were from, but I called my folks this morning and told them, and they're having a bit of an existential crisis right now.
They're like, John Steinbeck, our kid.
Like, no. It's about an actor? We're named after an actor? So I thought it had something to do with, oh my God.
With Tulsa. Yeah. Well, anyway, you've had this ridiculous hero's journey from production assistant, showrunner, star, writer, director, this whole arc. But because we're here at USC, I'm going to try to maybe concentrate for most of this on the beginning part, like how you even got to be a PA and like that part of your career. And then we can dip into the other, the big highlights and stuff. So I just want you to, do you ever look at it like, oh my God, how did I even get here from where you started? You're from Tulsa, right?
Yeah, I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Right.
From a very young age, I knew I wanted to, I was always wanting to be a director. That was the big love,
right.
That was the goal from pretty young age. And so I think by the time I was in high school, I was making short films and things like that. And I did a little, high school theater stuff but the goal was to be a director. And then my grades were abysmal. So I went out of state to go to a community college, which Jimmy Kimmel loves to make fun of me about. I went out of state to go to a community college in Scottsdale, Arizona, because they had like a kind of an interesting film program at Scottsdale Community College, where they just had a ton of equipment. And, this is the late 90s, so it was still a time before video looked really good. So, they had Avids, but they had Arri BLs and Arri S's and just all this stuff laying around and, people just to show you how to use it. And that's kind of what I wanted to do. So I made some short films that weren't good. And
at Scottsdale.
Yeah. I made some short films and I was like, I'm just losing my confidence a bit. I think it's a thing that happens. It's you forget to be fun, and you just it was just very pretentious stuff, and then I just moved to LA and just
got
here.
Can we go back to your high school before we even get to
sure.
Yeah. Just, you said you were a film buff. When did you first think like, oh, well, what films were you seeing as a kid where you're like, oh, I want to be John Ford. I want to direct.
Um, the first names were really, I mean, there was the obvious ones like Steven Spielberg and Alfred Hitchcock and stuff. But my parents, we weren't, we didn't watch a lot of television. It was mostly movies. Like my dad would just rent movies, and they were big movie buffs. And we lived next door to my grandparents, and they were big movie buffs. So, Mel Brooks and Stanley Kubrick. I mean, that he was really kind of the first name I really remembered, was that you saw his films and they just immediately felt different than the other films. And this is when I was very young. You just immediately know, okay,
Right.
so this is an art. You can have a personal stamp on.
Well, I know, yeah, a lot of kids love the 39 Steps, so that's very normal.
Well, I remember seeing like Clockwork Orange and Taxi Driver.
What?
I was like I was at a sleepover.
Yeah.
This is the problem with, Cinemax and all those things, was that like everybody thought we were watching like softcore porn and stuff. And it was like, no, actually we were watching the great films of the 70s that were just like really, really rough. But I remember being at a friend's house, like 12 or so, and watching the double feature of those two movies. And it was a mind blower. I mean, it kind of changed, you couldn't go and then go to school and be like, hey, did you guys see The Natural after you saw those two films? Nothing that there's anything wrong with The Natural, but you're just like, but they had a massive, impact on me. And also then reading about the people who did those and the movies there, and they were interested in, and so it was this kind of, and at the time, again, there's no internet, so you're just finding books and magazine articles and stuff, and especially in Oklahoma, there weren't a lot of big movie nerds. So,
was there any revival houses or anything near Tulsa?
No, now there is. They have the Circle Cinema there, but when I grew up there was I didn't know it existed. I mean, I rode my bike to Blockbuster. I mean, I was pretty
right. Yeah, and the reason Netflix exists is because of that Blockbuster return fee.
Yeah, I know. They just didn't want it. They were done with it.
They were done with that. And all right, so at that point, because you are, according to USC, you're a master of comedy. At that point in your life, you're watching A Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, right. It was hilarious.
Were you thinking like, oh, were you a funny kid at that time, or were you just like nerdy film kid?
I was like kind of spazzy, kid, like I played sports and stuff for a little bit, and then by the time I got to high school, I was more interested in film, and I wasn't the big I would go to parties and stuff, but I didn't really drink. I was more of like the coffee house kind of geeky crowd, I guess.
Did you have a crew of other like film geeks there?
No, we were actually, it was kind of fun. Like we all kind of were into stuff, but not geeky at all. No, I mean, I definitely, actually my friend Duffy Boudreaux and he played soccer, so he wrestled and stuff, but he now is a writer on Barry, and he wrote a documentary now as well.
Oh yeah.
But he's, my oldest friend, and so it was kind of a thing where like everybody was just pretty open. I remember taking a bunch of my friends to go see a revival of they did a revival of the Wild Bunch, like the extended cut, like Peckinpah's cut of the Wild Bunch.
Yep.
And we went and saw that. But also in the 90s, people with the Tarantino movies and that kind of independent cinema boom, like people had like pretty, just even like my friends, like sophisticated taste. It wasn't, it was, I mean, relative to what you would think, I guess.
Yeah.
People knew like good movies and stuff.
Okay, I have to ask you a little about your high school, because you went to a preparatory school. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And did you have to wear a uni?
Yeah. It was like the Rushmore Academy in the movie Rushmore. Yeah.
And they were preparing you for college, so they didn't...
Yeah. I was a massive failure because I didn't really. I went to go see my college advisor, and he would just like bullshit about like sports. It was just like, dude, like,
No,
come on.
there's a big thing, like in this generation, there's a lot of kids who are just like, oh, this is my first choice for college, and it's a big day, and I put on a sweatshirt now, and I put a post on Instagram, and I get into school. Was that a situation with you in Tulsa at all? Like, what schools
No,
are people getting into?
no. I mean, my friends, I mean, all got into good schools, but you know, I would have loved to have gone to. I mean, I had a American Masters did a documentary series called the this film school generation,
Uh-huh.
and it had interviews with like Steven Spielberg and George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola and you know John Milius and all those people and Scorsese obviously and so yeah, you kind of at a young age knew like you know SC and NYU and
Yeah.
UCLA. I mean that was it, you know, and so. And I just, you know, I just went to my advisor and I was like, "Hey, do you think?" And he's like, "Don't even." You're lucky if you could get into like a state school right now. I was like, right on, cool, dope.
And were you were you in plays already? Because it's just were you in plays at that prep school?
Yeah, I was in the Glass Menagerie as a gentleman caller.
Oh, that's like a lead.
Well, it's 4 people are, and so we're all kind of. I mean, there's only
Yeah,
4
yeah.
people in plays, so I guess. Yeah, I was in a couple of plays, but it was, you know, my girlfriend in high school was kind of the actor, you know, so
Mhm.
it was kind of like a way for us to hang out. So it was never like a thing I really, you know, considered a career of any sort. You know, it was.
Was SNL even on your radar at that point?
I mean, I was a massive fan of it, but just you know, the idea of being on SNL never ever occurred to me, and you know, which we can get into later, but that until it kind of happened.
Right.
I wouldn't even consider like an actual. It'd be like saying like, "Oh, I'm gonna go colonize Mars" or something. It was just like, what? You know.
Yeah. Well, just so you know, that's a little different than most people that are on SNL or are already like, oh, I'm focused on this even in high school.
No, I just didn't have the confidence. I had very little confidence in my performing ability. And you know, I didn't realize at the time, which I mean, it's very whatever people talk
Yeah.
about a lot with me, but it's I have very bad anxiety, very bad like you
Let's
know.
talk about that. Let's talk about that a little bit because a lot of one of the shocking things when I started teaching here was virtually every kid in my class was on anti-anxiety medication.
Right.
Every kid.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about a couple, like every. So when did that first manifest itself? Is it happening right now talking to me? How bad is it?
No, no
This
offense,
isn't-
Wayne, but I'm not nervous talking. No, no, but no, you know, it was more like anticipating something and
Mhm.
things like that. But mine was more of like I had to, and it got worse as I got older. You know, just stopping, just you know, catastrophic thinking and things like that, where it was like hindering me to. I think why I did bad in school. You know, it was just like the anticipation of a test or the anticipation of the pressure of like you have to get this grade point average or whatever. I just couldn't really handle it. And then you're watching all your friends know what to do, and I just would fold immediately. You know, I just couldn't handle any of it. And then and so you know, I think as I got older, I mean, I didn't really discover whatever, you know, any sort of medication until I was well into my 30s. You know, before that,
Yeah.
it was like, you know, just dealing with it, you know, and finding little ways of dealing with it, and then going into therapy and, you know, meditating, which I'm, you know, I do, you know, I do that twice a day and
Twice a day.
yeah. And you do it because it's like brushing your teeth or something, you know, it's
Right.
just like, oh, this is like what you do to like calm your brain down, you know.
Love it. So if you could give, because there's a lot of kids listening right now, young adults, if you could give them some advice about that, would it be just twice a day meditate?
No, I would say, so much of it is, there's a lot of things that has helped me, one is just taking it seriously. It's a very easy thing to go, oh, I'm anxious or whatever, and people kind of roll their eyes and go, you're fine, like everybody gets anxious, just get through it. And I would get that all the time when I was growing up.
Just power through.
Yeah, stop being a baby. Stop being dramatic. That's what I would get. I mean, even at SNL, you kind of felt like people were like, oh, yeah, Bill, you're being dramatic. And I was like, no, I can't breathe. But, a lot of it was like, what helped me was like taking the narrative out of it, meaning, oh man, I'm really anxious because I have a test.
Mm-hmm.
And take out the narrative, take out because I have a test, and just go, I'm really anxious. And just live in that. Like, this is me anxious.
Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you.
And you kind of sit and it'll go away. And then the other thing I like, and it's like a Buddhist saying of like, keep your eye on the ocean, acknowledge the wave, but keep your eye on the ocean, meaning like, these are just waves. This is going to end, this feeling is going to go away. So it's like a big wave hitting you, and but if you sit with the wave and you kind of hang out with the wave, you'll drown. So you got to just let it hit you, acknowledge it. Oh, that sucks, but keep your eye on the ocean and the big expanse, which is really beautiful. And so I don't know. I hope that makes sense.
No, I think that's really helpful. And you were in maybe the highest pressure show business job, which is a live television show, for like 8 years, right?
Yeah.
Now, do you feel like that made you bulletproof, or did that just damage you where you're just like, I'm still shaking from that experience?
Yeah, I mean, even when I go back and host, I mean, I kind of have a, mental breakdown. I just remember last time I hosted, Lauren Michaels came in the dressing room and was like, will you just have a good time? And I'm like, I know. I'm just, I always have to have kind of a pep talk. Jenna, our stage manager, always has to kind of talk me off a ledge.
Jesus. Yeah. So surprising, because you were such your characterizations on that show were so clear all the way through. So from the outside, it never looked like, oh, this guy's unraveling. This is embarrassing.
Yeah, you keep it. It's all inside, it's all inside, and it's, I had this weird thing when it was like, I would hear stuff. I wouldn't hear anything except the rafters, like the lights above us. And there's technicians walking around up there.
Yeah.
So I would be doing like an update feature, and while I'm doing it, all I'm paying attention to is the lights going, and I'm just like sweating, going like, okay, is something gonna drop on me? Is something good? You know what I mean? It was like really, I became convinced something was gonna fall on me. And then you would get done, and I would be like, oh, and in my head, I'm like, ah, man, I just blew that. I'm sorry, the lights, whatever. And everybody's like, what are you talking about? And that got annoying. Like after every one, I would go up to somebody and be like, was that okay? And they're like, yes, just relax,
Interesting.
But when you have anxiety, someone telling you to relax is like, it's
the
like
worst.
Going up to somebody who's on fire and being like, just relax,
cool down a little.
Yeah, cool down. Yeah.
You idiot. Wow. All right, let's talk about maybe a little about because this is a comedy. We do comedy here at USC about your incredible run writing on South Park and how that's helped you, and even how that happened.
Well, South Park happened because I just became friends with Matt Stone, and they do these, what do you call it? They're like
retreats.
Retreats, thank you. And
you're welcome.
And the retreats, they'll have you come out, and they'll like you just go to Seattle or something, and you would just hang out, and we went to Boston once, and you just kind of hang out, and it was like a dream. And he just said, oh, just come, like it's just like 4 writers and we just hang out and it's fun. And so I did it, and then that just turned into a thing that when I was in LA, and I was off SNL, I would come in and sit in for a bit. And for me, it was really an education. I did the same thing at Pixar too, where I was at Pixar, I fully just went there and I was like, can I just hang out with you guys?
Was this post SNL? In
this is when I
between
was on SNL.
when, yeah.
Because I wanted to learn how to write movies and write scripts. And the ones I was writing were not very good. And I had this kind of ability because of being on Saturday Night Live, where I can like meet these people and then kind of just ask like, can I come and hang out and watch you guys work? And sometimes I, participate, and other times I would just literally just not say anything. But at South Park, I participated, and then it was off and on for, up until Barry started.
Yeah.
I didn't have the time to do it, but I just learned how to craft a story. And what was always fascinating about working with those guys is how much emotion played into it, and how much, honesty played into something, even though it's like, Cartman, whatever, having a spaceship come out of his ass or whatever. There's still like an emotional component to it, and how to write satire and write, smart satire, and also being hard on their stuff, where they would, an episode would air, and then come in on Thursday and they'd be like, God, this doesn't, that didn't work, and that didn't work, and we should try to do that. And it was like, being critical.
Oh.
Or also feeling like you had it and realizing like, oh man, you like a day before the show would air, and you would go, man, we got it. And then we'd come in and Trey would be like, it doesn't work. And not understanding why, and then figuring it out that it was, just another layer of honesty that needed to be in it, or
wow, that's surprising. So you're saying it's not the joke as important as this emotional through line?
Yeah, emotional through line, being causal, with the story, making sure everybody has a reason to live, kind of thing. Like, is this character, can you tell the whole story without these characters? If so, you either need to cut them or use them somehow. And then I realized it was the same thing kind of at Pixar. I was in the room, very limited, but off and on for like 5 years when they were doing Inside Out. So like Inside Out, I initially was just like kind of like hanging out in the writer's room and pitching stuff from here, but just kind of watching them do that. And then almost as an afterthought, they're like, hey, do you want to play Fear? Like, yeah, sure.
You're like, I'm very familiar. I'm very familiar.
I can play Fear. Yeah, they're like, yeah. It's like, hey, Bill, why don't you play Fear? So yeah, it was really cool. And then, that was...
What from either from South Park or from Pixar, did that inform any of like the stuff you write on Barry, or is that?
Oh yeah. And also I say like Alec Berg and Liz Sarnoff, who wrote on Lost and Deadwood and everything. She's on the staff, and like they've taught me so much, because I'm the one kind of leading the room.
Yeah.
On Barry, but they have infinite more experience than I do. So they've been, teaching me stuff like, and along what I learned at Pixar and at South Park of the having emotion and logic and making sure that's, balanced, and just making sure everybody has a reason to live, and being honest with what the character would do. Sometimes what the character would do, if we're being honest, is uncomfortable, and not necessarily that funny,
Right.
And so sometimes we'd have something really funny, and then you're driving home and going like, well, actually what he would probably do is this, and you go, oh, Jesus, that's not funny. And it's usually the stuff that you would in a writer's room, depending on what the tone of your show is, you would go, oh, we can't do that. But on Barry, that was the thing with Barry, was like, oh no, let's explore that and see what works, if that works or not. So a good example of that,
season
1 of Barry was him killing his friend Chris.
Right.
where it was like, okay, outline. He tells Chris, like, you got to get out of town. You got to get your family. You got to get out of town or whatever. And we just thought, well, what he would do is kill him because he can't have a loose. He wants this thing so bad he can't have a loose thing going up. And then it was just silence in the writer's room, like, oh. And it was like, nah, he's got to kill him, you know.
And you learned that from South Park. Interesting.
Yeah, I learned that from Pixar, from doing Inside Out.
Really? That's incredible. All right, before we get into some of these student questions, I just want to loop back a little bit to how you first got to Hollywood and how you got those first production assistant jobs and how that happened.
I mean, I came to LA in June of 1999.
Right.
And I just opened up a Hollywood Reporter and started reading in the back and was like, who needs a PA or who needs an office person or whatever. And then I got a PA job. Actually, I was actually an extra in a USC student film called Looking for Bobby D.
Uh-huh.
And
is that Bobby De Niro?
I think so. It was called Looking for Bobby D.
Yeah.
And then there was another.
And this is from Hollywood Reporter, the back of a magazine.
Yeah, back of Hollywood Reporter.
Yeah.
And I remember in that I had to go, my first job ever, like Mom and Dad, I'm working on a movie, was for that short film having to drive to a pet store and pick up a rat. I had to go buy a rat and put it in a little box, and then driving in my dad's old car back to the set and just this rat moving around in the box and just being like, oh my God, this is awful. And then so as a PA on that, and then they made me an extra. So if that thing exists.
Is that a lateral move or is that a move down?
Depends on who you ask. I mean, it's really about the part, you know?
Right.
I was scared guy at parties, so maybe maybe it was a step up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then go ahead. Sorry.
No, I've never been a PA, but how abusive is it being a PA? Like, are people just don't even think you're a person, or is it lovely, or you're part of the team? How's it feel?
You know, it depends on the show, really, and it depends on the ADs, really, too. You know,
and the AD, for those who don't know, is the
assistant director, and so you have the whole assistant director department.
Yeah, and he's in charge of the PAs.
And yeah, it's a first assistant, second assistant, and the third assistant or the second. It's a weird thing, anyway.
Yeah.
But what I did was I just got in with a group of people, a guy named Jerry Grandy and a guy named Daryl Woodard. Jason Altieri I was a PA with him. Now he's the first AD of Yellowstone. And all these great people, and they I just went with them from show to show. So I did the big one was called Collateral Damage, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. I was a PA on that from day one throughout. And I was in base camp. Christina Peterson was the second on that, and she and I were the base camp people. And so I was running around being like, Arnold, they're ready for you. And that was what I did. And that was a great experience. I got to go to Mexico and watch them shoot these massive action scenes, and just being a movie fan, it was just so cool getting to see how something like that works. But I did movies like that. I was a PA on the first Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. So when James Franco came, and I was also a PA on James Dean and Invented Life, which James Franco played James Dean on. So when he came and hosted SNL, he came to me and was like, hey man, were you a PA on? I go, yeah, man, yeah. And then after that, he just treated me like a PA. He was like, Bill, go get me money.
Now, when you were on, like, let's say one of these movies, Spider-Man, Collateral Damage, and you saw the director go, hey, action and stuff, you're like, that's going to be me?
No. It was more watching, to be honest, it was more just seeing like what everybody did. And like how crew like how the operation worked, what was everyone's job,
Right.
and also the good directors versus the bad directors, you know, how it comes up from the high down. Oh God, in Spider-Man, we had a pretty good time because Sam Raimi was very nice. You know, other shows I've been on, the director was kind of out to lunch and didn't want to be there, and you felt it. You know, and no one knew what was going on. Everybody was frustrated, and I saw how poorly writers were treated on those big movies, where you would have a writer come in and and I remember meeting a writer on, I won't say the movie, but met him, and I was like, "Hey man," we were talking. I'm like, "No, I'm trying to write too," you know, and he's like, "Oh yeah, yeah." And I remember the producer came over and he was like, "Don't get used to that guy." I was like, "Oh my God," you know, and how much how much it means when an actor acknowledges like that you're doing a good job, or acknowledges the people below them, and then you have the people who just didn't want to speak to you. You know, I experienced the whole gambit of people. You know?
Well, like I said, it's an incredible Joseph Campbell hero's journey that you've been on. It's incredible. Like you were a little kid watching these movies, and now you're like, you are saying action on a movie.
Well, yeah.
Or your TV show.
TV show, not a movie.
TV, sorry.
One of these days it'll be a movie.
So that's still the dream.
Yeah, I'd like to make a movie, but I mean, the nice thing now with Barry is that, you know, you're making, it's like one big movie, which is kind of how I always.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
You know, it's like each season was a big movie, and then hopefully the whole series will feel like one giant story that makes sense. You know, we'll see if it works.
Yeah. We're going to go to this guy, Alex. He's going to pop up. He's going to ask us a question from one of the students. Can you handle that?
Sure.
Let's do it. Alex, where are you?
We are getting hundreds of questions. So
okay, let's do rapid fire. Let's
broken down thematically. I wanted to start with one from Jillian about Barry. She's a big fan, and her dad's a Marine. So
I can read these. Oh, I see it. Oh, these are right here. Okay.
Oh, yeah, but I have to read it for the audience.
Oh, right on. Sorry, man. Sorry.
Come on, man.
Come on, dude.
So,
come on.
Could you talk about any training or preparation, either mental or physical, when portraying Barry during his time in the Marine Corps?
You know what? It was interesting. We did talk to a couple Marines, and then actually 2 of our PAs were Marines on the season 1, so it was great. You know, just guys trying to get into the movie industry, and so it was great talking to them. And then I read a couple of first-hand accounts of guys in Afghanistan, and then also there's a movie called Restrepo, and the interviews with the guys in Restrepo, that was helpful. And then, you know, physically, I mean, it was hilarious when I went into HBO and they go, "Okay, we're gonna, you know, you guys can do a pilot." And then it was like, and so Bill, you're gonna be playing a former Marine. Like, they couldn't say it with a straight face. They're like, "You have to go get in shape." So that was helpful in a way. And then also our stunt coordinator has training, and then there's another guy named Duffy. Who knows? I have 2 men named Duffy in my life. Our stunt guy Duffy, who's a former Navy SEAL, and so he and Wade Allen, our stunt coordinator, teach me a lot about, you know, all the shooting and stuff. But I actually, ironically, do not love guns. I'm very uncomfortable around them. So it's getting me comfortable with those.
We've got a lot of. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Wayne.
No, go ahead. Go. What was the next question?
There have been a lot of questions asking about balancing comedy and drama, and one question popped out, which is that after the incredibly dark season 2 finale of Barry, the question is, how are they going to possibly continue the show as a comedy? How did your approach to comedic writing differ for this upcoming season?
That's a good question. I mean, it's kind of like we were talking about earlier, where so much of it is following that emotion, and like wherever the emotion takes you, and just being true to the characters and being honest to the characters, and doing that you get funny stuff and then you get really tragic stuff, and that's kind of how, life is in a way. And people talk about the tone of the show a lot, and it's always funny. I don't know, students, if you guys just doing your projects can relate to this, where the thing that people usually comment on is the thing that you weren't really thinking about that much, and the thing that you're really focused on, like no one ever mentions, and so, it was a thing of like, uh, of coming into seasons 3 and 4, like we've been writing 4 now during the pandemic, is finding those moments and not, like I was saying earlier with Barry shooting Chris in his car, is not shying away from that stuff, and it's amazing what will hold, certain things won't hold tonally, and that goes into while you're writing, and then when you're acting, you kind of tweak it a bit, and then you get in the edit and you go, oh gosh, this is off. I think maybe we need to turn it here, and it's amazing what sound will do and what the score will do, and it's a very fine-tuned process.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, we teach comedy lighting here at USC.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that was incredible. I didn't know that until today.
Well, that's the thing with the show, is that we were always like, make it look like a drama first.
Right.
Like that was very, like the first shot of the pilot is not funny. It's a dead body and so start with that, and then the comedy will be kind of a reprieve from there, and it's as instead of the other way around. I always found it harder to be funny and then suddenly get something that's too much. You kind of, the audience, I feel as an audience member, I don't know where I stand with the thing, but Goodfellas is a good example of that. Goodfellas starts off and it's very violent, and then the comedy just feels real. It feels like of those guys, those people, and then it does this amazing thing, that movie, whereas it goes in, you go, oh my God, now I like these people.
Right.
I relate to these people. Oh, this is not good,
Yeah.
And that was a thing that I found very influential, doing this.
Go ahead, Alex.
There were some questions about actually about sound and music for Barry. So can you talk about the thought process that goes into choosing whether or not to have music in a scene, and how you go about choosing the songs themselves? And just to piggyback on that, someone noticed that the lyrics to Journal of Ardency closely align with the plot of Barry, and that you and Alec Berg have talked a lot about symbolism on the show. So how do you incorporate that stuff?
Well, that song, I actually just was listening to, it just came on like a Spotify playlist in my car, and I just went, this is eerie how well this fits to the show. But having heard that song, then came up with the idea, just had the image in my head of Barry watching Sally dancing in slow motion to that song. So the song came first, and then ended up writing that whole thing around it. And then in the writing process went, oh, we'll bring it back again at the end. Everyone's different. I like, I like things very dry, sound-wise. I like feeling like I'm in a space, and then bringing in little things where it feels kind of, the Ronnie Lilly episode we did, where there was a big fight inside a house. It was initially, we put in music, and it made it feel like an action scene. And I was like, let's take everything out and just hear neighbors and hear kids down the street and stuff like that. And then suddenly it didn't feel like an action scene. It felt like something else. It felt a little off, and you're a bit objective about it. And I don't know, that's just me, and that's probably from why, I don't know. There's a lot of those Polish filmmakers, they do that. Andrzej Wajda and guys like that, they don't. I just appreciate that. Another great movie that does that is No Country for Old Men, where it just is like,
Yeah.
sound design of those movies.
There's no music in that movie, right?
No, just over the end credits.
Yeah.
You know? And you feel it though, because it takes it out of being a thriller. Because the music could tell you how to feel in a certain moment.
Right, right.
I'm always kind of going like, do I need to be telling you how to feel right now, or do I want you to just come to it? I want you to lean in, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's I tend to go for that, and then when you use music is in moments when you do want a feeling of, Dave Wingo's our composer, and he's amazing, and he'll spot things where he'll go, can I just try something there? And usually he's right, we go, oh yeah, this is fun, this is good.
This question's from Dan. He wants
this is a Dan question. Just be ready. It's a Dan question.
Megan Mullally was instrumental in helping you get started as a performer, and he wants to know a little bit more about how that happened.
Oh, I was at Second City, LA, and Megan Mullally, her brother-in-law, Matt Offerman, he and I were friends, and we're in the same show together. And she came and saw the show, and then afterwards we all went and ate at Cantor's Deli, and I'd never met her before in my life, had no idea that she was also from Oklahoma. And she was like, you're really funny. I'm going to tell Lauren Michaels about you. And I just went, oh, that's nice. And, you just don't think that'll happen. And so then I was working as an assistant editor on Iron Chef America at the time, and got a phone call from Lindsay Shookus, who's now the head of the talent department, but at the time was, just an assistant. And she called and said, hey, I work at SNL, and Megan Mullally told Lauren Michaels about you. He'd love to meet you. And I was like, and I just had an editor yelling about, how I messed up some Mario Batali thing. And I was like, okay, all right.
Can I do a quick follow-up about Second City? Were you first rejected by them and then?
No. I went to the conservatory, so right. I couldn't get into the wait list for the Groundlings was like a year.
Okay.
And so I remember going to the Groundlings, and they were like, you have to come back in a year. So then I went to Second City, LA. UCB Theater in LA had not opened yet.
I gotcha.
So I would do classes at Second City and then kind of bounce around. And I just, again, getting up on stage for me was rough. I had to kind of like get,
got it. All right.
Another question from Sarah. What did you do for your SNL audition?
My SNL audition was a character I used to do on SNL, Vinny Vedecci. He was an Italian talk show host, and it was him doing impressions. And he did Al Pacino, James Mason, Tony Blair. It was 2004 or 5. Tony Blair, and then Peter Falk. The heavy hitters, what the kids like, and people that people have never done impressions of. So it was, I did that, and then the day of, I didn't have Tony Blair, and then the day of, they called and said, hey, they want a political impression from you, and they don't want George Bush, who was the president. And so I just put on C-SPAN, and Tony Blair was talking on there, and I just tried to come up with some Tony Blair thing, out of my, and so I just went there, and then I remember getting there, and there was a guy in an elevator who had a lot of props, and I went, oh my God, I didn't bring any props. And he was auditioning, and that was Andy Samberg. And I'd never met him before. So Andy had a lot of props, and he said he was looking at me going like, oh no, that guy doesn't need props. I'm such a hack. I have all these props.
This comes from Austin. Coming from an environment like SNL where sleep is few and far between, do you find that late nights and a modicum of sleep deprivation actually encourages creativity and tapping into the absurd? Or are you in a place now where your creativity and comedy comes from a more regimented, healthy sleep schedule?
I actually, this is going to sound weird, I actually would say the reverse. I feel much better first thing in the morning. If SNL was first thing in the morning, I think I would be much better as the day wears on. And this is kind of why I started meditating, trying to get back to that place where the day hasn't been wearing on you. Getting into a relaxed state of mind that's healthy helped me, but everyone's different. Like Will Forte and Seth Meyers would not start writing until well after midnight on writing nights.
Wow.
They would just be hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you were going to write a sketch of Will Forte, you knew, well, I'm going to be here for the next 24 hours because he'll, and then once I had children, I was like, I'm going home at 11. I don't care what anybody says. I'm going home at 11. So I kind of just stopped writing with those guys, but everybody's different. But for me, I think a healthy sleep schedule is being healthy just in general is better for you, especially as you get older. It comes back to haunt you.
This question's from Valerie. She's asking about the initial idea for Barry. She heard that before the current plot, you and Alec Berg had mentioned that there was a previous plot that didn't work out and never went into depth about it.
Oh yeah, we had there's a friend of mine that I grew up with in Oklahoma, and we were initially going to do a show about him, and just about this guy. It was like very much day in the life type of thing, and we kind of outlined something together, and then we're like, oh, there's a lot of shows that are like this that are really good, and this will not be as good as that, and I just remember thinking like, oh, I want something with like stakes, something that moves, and is, and I'm also very fascinated by the effects of violence. It's that is just something I've always been interested in, and on the victims, families, and things like that, but also in the perpetrator of them and things like and that. But and I just said, well, what if I was a hitman? And Alec went, oh, I hate hitman. That's like let's not do a hitman. That sucks. And then I was like, no, but it's me as a hitman. He was like, no, it'll be you as a hitman. I was like, no, but it's like me being me, like weird, kind of self-conscious guy who the one thing he's good at is killing people. Because that's what I felt like at SNL. It was like the one thing I was good at was doing voices and stuff. But I was inside, I was, going crazy and having all these kind of, anxiety and depression and all these things that I was trying to grapple with. That and kind of trying to do good, trying to better myself, and what happens as you get older and you better yourself, and then I was like, can you move past doing something like that? And that was like an interesting question that then suddenly it just, I'm sure these guys, you guys know it just clicks, something clicks, and you go, oh, I now can write this. The seed of the story has to, and that other idea we had, the seed it wouldn't grow anything. It just was like faulty, and so you had to throw it away.
Quick follow-up. When did you first realize you had a facility for impressions?
With teachers in high school and stuff.
Oh, that far back, huh?
Yeah, but I had never tried impersonating famous people until my SNL audition. Megan Mullally didn't see me doing impressions of famous people. She saw me just doing like just like a regular improv show, and she happened to come on a night where I was really good. If she had come on Saturday instead of Friday, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. It was just
no Okie.
We have a question from Julius, which is, was there ever a moment that almost made you give up comedy?
Not really. I had moments as a PA that were hard but I never ever thought about giving up. No. I mean, that's the honest answer. It was one of those things like when you have it, or Bob Odenkirk saying that to me, where he was like, if I was still living in, Chicago or something, and I was, just had a 9-to-5 job, I would still be writing these sketches and still be doing this stuff. Like I can't help it, And I kind of felt the same way, where there was no question that I would just write these things and think up these, stories, but an idea of being funny, and you don't ever give up comedy, because it's just that's like an attitude, that you have, that's like a part of yourself. You should never give that up. That's no one can take that away from you.
Stop that. Stop that.
Way. Yeah, I mean, in a positive way. Yeah.
From Ben, as a performer, is your approach different for material that you wrote yourself versus material that you didn't? And do you feel more liberated to improvise in one setting or the other?
Yeah, I mean, when I'm on another movie, I tend to, I'll try some things, but it's also very much up to the directors. Sometimes the directors like it, sometimes they don't. It's very different. But with my own stuff, I laugh because Sarah Goldberg kind of touched on that in the video they made. But it was like, yeah, I will write this stuff, but I will get on set and totally not know my lines of my own show, and people give me shit about it all the time, where I'm like, and then I say what, because I'm trying to do so many things. But also when I'm in a scene, like Stephen Root told me this, he was like, you'll be in a scene with me and I'm like mumbling his lines to him, I'm mouthing them, because I'm so like locked into the story that I'm not thinking about this, I'm thinking about this. And so sometimes I have to step out. I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry, let me just back up and come back in again, and just like focus on this one little moment instead of going, macro and micro. It's a tough thing to manage, So I know other people's lines better than mine usually.
I think we have time for a couple more questions before we get to
questions as much as they want.
Okay, well, let's do it. Let's keep. We're gonna run the light.
Oh my God.
Yeah, well, we got some. I have a miscellaneous category of questions. What's with that Steinberger bass that you play? It gives me nightmares. Is it actually comfortable to play? And should I sell my Stingray 5 for it?
No. No. The weird thing about that is that it has no head, so I'm off all the time, because that's where you know where you're at. And so I'm always like, wait a minute. Oh, right, there's no head on it. So actually this is where I want to be. But I have to give credit. I mean, a lot of that's Fred Armisen. He shows me, he plays all the parts, and then it's like he just shows me where to go. But the one of the coolest nights of my life was when I was shooting It 2, and I got to hang out with the guys from Rush, and I got to say to Geddy Lee, like, he saw that episode and he goes, aren't those hard, those stemmer? And I was like, yeah, man, yeah, no, those are tough, yeah. I was like, yeah, no, we're talking shop.
From Elizabeth, are you aware of the Twitter account @HaterIsDoing? And can you unequivocally deny either yours or your assistant's involvement in its running?
Oh, the one that's like right now, Bill Hader is doing. Yeah, people send me clips of that. I am not on social media, but sometimes people will send me that, and I will not lie. At one moment, I was like, is this my assistant, or is this like someone who works for me? Because sometimes it's dead on, where I feel like there's like a hidden camera in my house, where I'm like, how the hell? Because they'll say, I have people in Oklahoma who know that I don't go on social media, my friends back home, and so they love to send me tweets about myself just to like give me shit. And that, I would say that one is the one that I get sent the most. So whoever's doing that, you're very good, because a lot of times it is. I remember this one is like, Bill Hader just walked into a room and doesn't know why he went in. I was like,
that's right.
From Bianca, what were some of the narrative techniques you learned from Matt Stone's writer's retreat that you may have applied to Barry?
I asked that question.
I'm so sorry.
Oh my God, guys.
You're gonna get mad at her.
No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Let's see. From Ella, you mentioned a little earlier how students around this age can take things too seriously at certain points. How would you recommend students to balance taking film and their passion seriously while also having fun and being true and authentic to themselves?
That's a good question. That took me a while, you know. It's George Saunders has a great essay about being at Syracuse and being a student of Tobias Wolff. Those are like two of my favorite writers. Tobias Wolff's probably my favorite writer, and he said, Tobias Wolff said to him, like, you know, don't lose the magic. You know, what he got in on, what got him into the writing program were these little fun short stories he was writing. And then he said, don't lose the magic. And then he said, for the next 7 years, I lost the magic because I was trying to be Hemingway or, you know, whoever. I was trying to write the great American thing. And what I learned was getting away from influence, which is impossible. Like, people go, hey, don't. I'm like, for me, it's like, it wasn't until we were mixing the last episode of Barry season 2, where Barry goes into a monastery and shoots a bunch of guys, that I was like, this is Taxi Driver. Oh my God, this is Taxi Driver. You know what I mean? It's like, clearly, I love Taxi Driver. It had a, you know, you see it when you're 12 and it has an effect. So, but is anything, like, I think it's the thing that helped me was just being honest with yourself wholeheartedly. And a lot of that, if you're being fully honest with yourself, and trying to get to that real emotion of a thing, is you will have sadness and comedy. You know, you will have things, you know, that's why I love that show, I May Destroy You, so much, because it was, she just was so, you know, it was very complex, you know, and as you get older, life just gets even more complicated. And so it was like, this does mean, like, when you go into it, you just don't, you try to have fun. You try not to take it too seriously, you know? And so when you go into a thing and you're like, okay, we're gonna do a story ostensibly about, like, I'll use Barry, about a murderer. You know, there's a version of Barry that's really sad and just drab, and it's, you know, it's like a, you know, I don't know, a Bergman movie or a Tarkovsky movie or something. It's just really a bummer. And then there's like the glib version of it, you know, which is like, I'm doing Weekend at Bernie's bits with bodies and stuff, and it's whatever. And you got to go into it with all those things, because that's, you know, it has to be all that stuff, and it has to come from you, you know, and that's what makes it interesting, and that's how you have fun. This, I hope I'm making sense. How you have fun is like your experience on that thing. Right. Like, I couldn't have written Barry if I hadn't had the SNL experience, you know? And so it's just taking those emotions and that fear and everything, right, and going like, okay, here's everything. And in that is a lot of comedy and sadness.
Speaking of comedy, I heard that Stefan was originally a character in a sketch that couldn't get on the show until it became a Weekend an Update character. Is that right?
Yeah, the sketch is online. Yeah, it's me and Ben Affleck, and it's terrible.
Why do you think it didn't work in a sketch, but worked next to a fake news sketch?
Yeah, because it was just going straight to camera, I think, and I think just watching someone. I'll be honest, it's watching a guy who's not good at his job. It's John Mulaney's rhythms on that thing, the rhythm of him saying New York's hottest club is this, and it's like it's a rhythm thing. And then honestly, just watching me laugh, you know, I mean, I think that was the other thing, that, you know, just getting tripped up on all that stuff, you know, and I think John knowing how, you know, anxious I am So I've always been an easy touch. I laugh very easily. So.
Right.
Okay, just a couple more. This is from Adrian. How do you balance directing and acting when you're doing it on the same episode? So directing other actors or making sure shot works while also focusing on your own acting. Who gives you feedback on acting in that setting, and how do you direct yourself?
Directing yourself is very hard. I need like an Alec Berg there usually, or sometimes the other actors, or I'll have, like I said, Duffy Boudreaux or one of the writers if they're on the set, or even Aida Rogers, our producer. I kind of just go, I've never shaken that, like after we do something, walking over going, is that all right? Does that seem right? Is that what we're going for? I have no idea. And then the other thing is allowing the other actors to have their process and letting them kind of explore it in a way. And that's why I kind of learned at Second City is making the other person look good, and just, it's, you're not getting in their way at all, and everybody has a different process. Every actor on our show is different, and so you approach it, differently. But like I said, with Stephen Root, I had a lot to learn. I screwed up a bunch of stuff too, where I was like, mouthing along with them, or, in the middle of something, just going like, hey, can we go in close real quick? And they're like, can you say cut? Because when you do that, I think you're in character. Or I was doing a thing once with Sarah Goldberg, and she was like, what did I do wrong? What? I go, no, I was acting. But the look on my face was like, what the fuck are you doing? I was like, no, you're great,
I have some documentary now questions. So
is this for me?
You're absolutely welcome to jump in. So have there been ideas thrown around for new episodes modeled after, say, Trekkies, The Last Waltz, Project Nim, Mondo Cane? What are some of the new stories you'd like to develop for documentary now?
Well, I don't want to say them because we might do them, but we have had a couple of documentary now season 4 writer retreats. And the problem is that the brain trust on that, everybody's working a lot on other things. So between me, Fred, Seth, Reese Thomas is now directing Hawkeye. Alex Bruno is now directing Russian Doll, and John Mulaney, and Eric Kenward, and these other writers are all crazy busy with these big shows. So it'll happen at some point. But I will say the one that I always wanted to do that's just impossible is Frederick Weissman's High School.
Oh, God.
That's the one I would love to do, is High School. But it was just too. We kind of did it with Salesmen, so I don't think we'll ever do that one.
All right, we have to get to giving you an award. We have to wrap this whole thing up. So first of all, thank you so much for talking to us, sharing that. I was just my big takeaway was like in that montage at the beginning, Sarah says like always fearless working on this thing, and yet it seems like fear is like that's not you at all.
Yeah, no, it's just you use it as like an engine, I guess. But you're just managing it. I tend to talk a lot about it, I think, in interviews, because I would always search for interviews with people talking about it, and no one.
Oh, okay.
So I'm always, when sometimes you do these things, you're like, what would I want to hear when I was like, in my early 20s? And it's like, just do your work, just focus on the work. Don't focus on all this other stuff, just
right. Is the task at hand.
Focus on your work, take the work seriously, all those cliche, take the work seriously, don't take yourself seriously, all that. But like, it really is like, if your eye is just on making the thing good and learning, you can't really go wrong.
Love it. That's it. Well, it's incredible from Tulsa, Oklahoma, all the way to show running. It's just an amazing arc.
Thanks.
All right, we're going to bring on somebody to maybe present you an award. Yeah, here we go. Hey, Jack.
Hey, how you doing? Wow, thank you, Bill and Wayne. It was really a great conversation, remarkable. It was terrific. And Bill, I really know that your honesty and openness really spoke to a lot of our students, writers, directors, producers, and sharing really meant a lot to all of us.
Oh,
So
awesome.
along with my colleagues, Barney Kelman, David Isaacs, we have greatly enjoyed working with the Okie Foundation. For 12 years, the Okie Foundation has generously supported USA students interested in studying in comedy. So thank you once again to the Okie Foundation's trustees. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Okie Foundation trustee, the one, the only, David Sonny.
Thank you so much, Jack. I have to tell you, I almost didn't make it here today. On Tuesday, I was on a flight to LAX, and right after we flew over Randy's Donuts, we were diverted. And 37 hours later, I wound up in a place called Klopstokia, and I'm still here. And it's 12:30 on Sunday morning. So I'm way ahead of you guys. I'm just waiting for a flight back. I'm in what they call the VIP room at the airport. But the good news is that I didn't have to drive to USC all the way from my house. And even better than that is, like most of you, I'm not wearing pants for this event. So it's really kind of comfortable. But I must tell you, if the Okies were with us today, they would be thrilled beyond words. On the other hand, if the Okies were anywhere today, they'd probably be just as thrilled. Every year, the Okie Foundation presents the Master of Comedy Award to an individual who is more than significant I lost my place. More than significant in the world of comedy. I want to thank Bill Hader for honoring the Okies by accepting this award. And I want to thank you personally for the countless hours of laughter and enjoyment you have shared with me. I always fell asleep halfway through Saturday Night Live. And then once you started on the show, it was incentive to stay up, to watch who you became. It was just incredible. At any rate, by now you should have received a hermetically sealed box containing the award. So at this time, if you could open the box and we'll see what's really in there.
All right, this is the box.
It's in the box.
It's in the box. We can do our 7 references. Oh my Lord. Oh wow. Oh wow. Here goes. This is amazing. Thank you guys so much.
You're very welcome, and congratulations on joining a very elite group of funny people.
I'll say this USC comedy, that's the coolest thing about this award is I'm being very genuine, from as you heard from Wayne and I talking, is like, I saw that documentary about film schools, and when I first came here, June of '99, I would, with my friend, I've never admitted this, we would just drive to the USC campus just to look at it and just go like, this is where it all went down, like we were just massive film nerds, and it's kind of the mecca for this stuff. So this really does mean a lot to me. This is pretty
Thank you.
Unreal, man. Unreal. So thank you guys very much.
Mazel tov on your achievements.
Thank you.
Every year we honor the contributions to comedy made by people like you and Wayne. And in other words, today we're honoring Wayne Fetterman again. And can we see the first slide, please?